My name is Richard Coles, and I'd like to welcome you to this Plant Science Day recording of my project Establishing High-Yield Honey Companion Crops in Existing Christmas Tree Plantings, in which I did the work in conjunction with Dr. Jatinder Alak. Both of us are stationed at the Valley Laboratory in Windsor, Connecticut. The idea of combining high-yield honey plants with Christmas trees has several possible benefits, one of which would be to have honey production as a second source of farm revenue. If legumes are planted as a companion crop with the Christmas trees, they would fix nitrogen and partially replace the need for applying synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. A side benefit of having legumes in the system might be to prevent browsing on trees by white-tailed deer during the winter. One of the most important reasons, though, is by planting flowering honey crops, this would also support the beneficial predatory and parasitic insects that attack mites or insects in our Christmas tree plantings. Christmas tree plantings require vegetation management, both for areas within the rows of trees and for the drive rows. At Humming Grove Farm, we're combining a conventional herbicide strip within the Christmas tree rows with application of wood chip mulch. The wood chips are a freely available natural resource which are a waste product from tree removals. Using wood chips as mulch helps to conserve soil moisture, builds soil organic matter, and if hardwood chips are used, can also be used to cultivate gourmet quality wine-cap Scrophularia mushrooms. The area for the drive rows on most Christmas tree farms is not used except to grow vegetation that stabilizes soil. This is normally a mix of grasses and whatever herbaceous plants happen to be there. These grassy areas require extensive labor and fuel for mowing and do not provide farm revenue. This project investigated replacement of existing grassy vegetation in drive rows with high-yield honey crops. This work was inspired by the work of Dr. George Ayers at Michigan State University. If you're interested in following or learning more about his work, the literature is reviewed at the end of this presentation. George was a pioneer in quantifying how good different honey plants are for honeybees, in which he established replicated plots of various plants and then measured both the amount of bee visitation and the amount of honey that was removed from honeybees from his plots. One of the winners from his trial was this relative of the snapdragon, Scrophularia nodosa, or Simpson's honey plant. We used a close relative of this plant, Scrophularia marylandica, in our trial at Humming Grove Farm. One of George's favorite plants is Agastache foeniculum, or Anise hyssop. Researchers in Massachusetts estimate that this plant in a solid planting could produce upwards of 3,000 pounds of honey per acre. A lot of the plants that were winners in the experimental trials at Michigan State University were plants in the mint family, including the Agastache and several species of mountain mints, or Pycnanthemum genus. At Humming Grove Farm, we tried 3 different species: Pycnanthemum tenuifolium, slender mountain mint; Pycnanthemum pilosum, hairy mountain mint; and not pictured, Pycnanthemum muticum, or clustered mountain mint. Thymus serpyllum is another plant in the mint family. It's a very low-growing ground cover native to Europe and North Africa. The thing that I find interesting about it is that it can grow very low and is tolerant of mowing, and is competitive enough that I have seen solid stands of this plant that have taken over in place of grass in industrial parks in Manchester, Connecticut. And to round things off for the mint family is true mint, and I used wild mint, Mentha arvensis, which is native to both North America, Europe, and Asia. 2 European legumes tolerant of acid soils were planted from seed. One was Alsike clover and the other bird's foot trefoil. One of the challenges in planting these honey crops is that all of them have very small seeds, and so it's difficult to get them established where there is existing vegetation. Small seeded plants oftentimes have a difficult time getting started when they have competition from surrounding vegetation. We wanted to determine how readily we could establish these plants that we had to start in plug trays with by looking at combinations of either applying mulch or herbicides in all possible combinations. This is what's called a factorial experimental design. So we had 7 different species, 2 different mulch treatments, and 3 herbicide treatments. So 7 times 2 times 3 means that we had 42 different treatment combinations. The mint on the left is stunted from Plateau herbicide. The vigorous plants were from mulch with SureGuard herbicide. Here's mulch with no herbicide. There's a lot of competing vegetation. Not all plants were tolerant of mulch. Here's a stand with low density of Anise hyssop, which did not tolerate mulch. For plants that can be established from seed, such as the Alsike clover, bird's foot trefoil, and creeping thyme, you would apply glyphosate in the fall to kill existing vegetation, and then the next spring sow the seeds, probably in February or March, which is called frost crack seeding. After those plants have come up in the spring, if they have excessive grass competition, you could apply a grass-specific herbicide. Then for those plants that need to be established from planting seedlings from plug trays, it's much more complicated. You'd want to kill off the existing vegetation with glyphosate application in the fall. Then for most of these seeds, they require a cold treatment or stratification of seeds, which you would want to start in December so that they'd be ready for planting into plug trays in February. Before planting the seedlings from the plug trays, you would apply first a pre-emergent herbicide, which in most cases SureGuard was the most suitable product. You'd apply that in April, and then immediately after having applied that herbicide, you could apply composted wood chips, and then transplant the plug seedlings early in May, right within the wood chip mulch. You'd probably want to fertilize to compensate for the compost demand for nitrogen to get the plants off to a good start. And then another consideration is that if grassy weeds come through all of those treatments, you still could consider applying a grass-specific herbicide. I would like to thank Northeast SARE, which is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, for having provided funding to conduct this research.